Jonathan Smith Show on Indie Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indie Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indie Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice start to your week. Okay, if you're an Indiana fan, it's maybe not as nice as you would have liked, but it's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. Tony East, he's going to join the show coming up in about an hour, 11 o'clock, and we're going to talk a little bit of Pacers. They look really good coming back from that All-Star break, but we are going to start in Oregon because, you know, Indiana had to go there on the road last night. Just a tough place to win. It's not close to here. Tough environment. Oregon has a good team, not a great team. But, you know, it's all good. And, you know, we have to start here because it's Wednesday, which means it is officially over the hump day here on the real Jonathan Smith Show.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo! Hump day!
No, as the coach, I gotta get us over that hump. I gotta get them comfortable, knowing that you're gonna be in close games and you gotta make plays coming down the home stretch. I mean, in the tournament, we were right there. You know, I just didn't get them over the hump, man. And you know, that's something that I live with every day of my life. Because I truly believe that was the team to really make some noise and get to the finals, and I just couldn't get them over the hump.
Mike Woodson just never quite able to get his teams over the hump, and he couldn't do it last night. Indiana loses just another close game on the road that they undoubtedly could have won. A couple plays late really made the difference in that game. Here's Mike Woodson talking about the plays that resulted in that Indiana loss.
Well, again, I thought we were right there, man. We up one with 3-4 minutes on the clock, you know. And I mean, the kid hits a big bucket, and then we just didn't regroup from that point on. And you got to give them credit because their defense picked up when it needed to. They got a big steal out of our possession, and we threw it away. So I mean, that was the difference in the game, I thought, coming down the stretch.
Mike Woodson right there talking about the difference in that game last night against Oregon, who, you know, as I said yesterday, they're a good team. I think that they showed that yesterday. I wouldn't say that they're great, though. I didn't think that they did anything at some sort of elite level. Like, they were just a good, solid, all-around basketball team that really did everything well. They rebounded well. They hit shots. They defended really well. And I think the thing that stood out the most in watching this game was just how physical it was. I mean, guys getting bumped and held, and, you know, like, it felt like guys were falling down every single possession. Felt like I was watching a women's game. Seriously. I mean, dudes' bodies on the floor all over the place. You know, guys dribbling the basketball and getting hand checked, and it was just a very physical game. And the fact that Indiana only took 7 free throws is crazy to me. The fact that Oregon didn't foul 7 times, like Indiana never got into the 1-and-1. That's crazy to me, especially with how much Indiana got to the bucket. Like, they took 40 shots inside the three-point line. It was a heavy, heavy dose of Malik Reneau and Omar Baldo. Those guys took a total of 19 shots. And you know that all 19 of them, with the exception of the Malik Reneau 3, were like within the restricted area. The fact that they only got 7 free throws is absurd. And then you compare that to the fact that Oregon got into the 1-and-1 with 8.5 minutes left to go in the second half. Meanwhile, Oregon didn't foul 7 times in that second half. Crazy. And I am not blame the refs guy. I don't think that the refs dictated the outcome of that game, but I do not blame Mike Woodson in the slightest for being upset after the game. Here he is talking about the referees.
I mean, we had our chances, but listen, guys, in a physical game like this, it can't be 21-7. You gotta be kidding me. 21-7 on free throws. It's bull. It just can't be not in a physical game. They're a physical team, and it can't be that lopsided. It's impossible.
Did you think that was mostly with Ballo and Renew inside, or?
No, I'm just saying it can't be 21-7.
What was the ref's message to you?
Well, again, it's what it is. I can't go back and get it. But in a physical game like that, where both teams are battling their asses off, you can't punish one team and put one team at the line for 21 times and another team only get there 7 times. That's all.
That's awful. As Mike Woodson was just kind of laying it out right there. I mean, look, he has every right to be upset because, man, that game was just, I'm not going to say it was poorly officiated, but I'm with Mike Woodson. Like, it was lopsided. Oregon was 19 of 21 from the free throw line. That's pretty impactful. Indiana was 3 of 7. Once again, I don't think that the refs dictated the outcome of that game, but they certainly did not help. And part of why the free throw discrepancy was that large was because Indiana fouled late. Okay, before that, though, Oregon had still taken twice as many free throws as Indiana had. And that's part of why it's tough to win on the road. Calls don't tend to go your way as often. Home cooking, like that is 1,000% a thing in basketball, both in the NBA and in college and in high school, all the way down to the level where there is no home court advantage. Okay, so yes, the referees had an impact on that game. I don't think that it dictated the outcome, though. I thought Nate Biddle, the big center for Oregon, I thought, man, his impact defensively is why Indiana lost that game. Malik Renew struggled with his size. He was 4 of 12 from the floor. And every time he touched the ball, he got swallowed up. It looked like Braden Smith trying to play against SEC guards. Like Malik Renew, as soon as he touched that basketball, it was like, this guy is clearly undersized. Okay, and like him trying to play center surrounded by 4 shooters against Nate Biddle just did not work. And I think that's part of why we saw him share the floor a little bit more often with Omar Ballo last night. Okay, because like they needed Ballo on the floor to combat Nate Biddle's size. Right, and that led to there being too many minutes with Omar Ballo and Malik Renew on the floor. There was no spacing. It was kind of funny, just like watching how, Oregon lined up when they were both on the floor. Like Omar Ballo would be out at the 3-point line. He'd be at the 3-point line. And Nate Biddle's like, that's cool. I'm going to stand with my heels in the restricted area because I know that you're zero threat whatsoever to take that shot. And then, they'd get the ball inside, and then it just became really easy to double Malik Renew and Omar Ballo because they're both just kind of in the other guy's way, and neither one of them is a good enough shooter to step out and, knock down a 3. I thought that the way that they cut up the minutes was just wrong because I thought it was pretty evident early that Malik Renew just didn't have the size to hang in that game, especially with, Biddle on the floor. Omar Ballo should have played 30 minutes. That's how many he played. The issue is Malik Renew played 27 minutes. He should not have played 27 minutes last night. He should have played closer to 15. Okay, Omar Ballo was clearly much more effective. He had 10 points on 5 of 7 shooting. The fact that he only got to take 7 shots feels kind of criminal, because he's been playing really well here as of late. He also had 12 rebounds. He also did a good job of protecting the rim. And once again, it was pretty evident early that Malik Renew was going to struggle when Nate Biddle was defending him. Meanwhile, since Omar Ballo's bigger than Nate Biddle, he had some success. Okay, Malik Renew should not have played 27 minutes last night. I've been, pretty adamant about supporting Malik Renew. I think he makes Indiana better against a lot of the teams that they've played, but he didn't last night. He should not have played 27 minutes like he did. Mackenzie Mbako, he played 26 minutes, which is insane. No, excuse me, 20 minutes. My bad. Still insane. I don't think he should have played that much. He had a brutal first half. Didn't make a shot. Didn't make a field goal. Didn't score a point despite starting. And then, second half, he has this 3-minute stretch where he hits 2 threes, gets to the free throw line, makes 2 free throws. And I was like, all right, here we go. McKenzie and Mbako, second half. Let's get it rolling here a little bit. Didn't notice him after that. Didn't notice him anywhere on the floor. Okay, he wasn't impactful on the defensive end. He didn't rebound super great. 5 rebounds in 20 minutes. That's not bad. But at the same time, McKenzie Mbako is 6'8". I would expect him to grab more than 5 rebounds in 20 minutes. Okay, so and then he just kind of disappeared, which has been an issue for him this year. There are just too many games where you don't notice him on the floor, and it's really frustrating because he's a good player. And this was just another game where Indiana played well enough to win. Feels like that's the story of this season for Indiana basketball. They play well enough to win, but they don't. Okay, small mistakes costed them late in that game. They fouled too much. Follow and renew, played too many minutes together. I thought that they shot too many threes. I know that Indiana shot the ball well from 3 in these last 3 games. They shot 36% last night. Whoop-de-frickin-do. This is not a good 3-point shooting team. They have no business taking 25 threes in a game like they did last night. Okay, and I know that they made some early, but they didn't shoot well late in that game, and they lost. Now, they need to win that game against Ohio State at home on senior night. It's going to be a tough one because Ohio State's tough, and they're fighting to make the NCAA tournament just like Indiana is. Okay, Purdue, they also played last night. They beat Rutgers. Are they back? Is Purdue back? People are asking. I would ask, did they ever leave? I don't know. Purdue, man, they've just been on a heater these last 2 games, shooting the basketball. They're just running crisp offense. Okay, they shot 11 of 22 from 3 against UCLA, and they shot 52% from the floor overall. And last night, it's they're playing Rutgers. I didn't expect them to shoot that well against Rutgers, not because they were incapable of it, but just because teams don't have back-to-back shooting games like that very often. And, I was right. They didn't shoot the ball as well as they did against UCLA last night when they played Rutgers. They actually shot the ball better, 50% from 3 once again, and they shot 56% from the floor. Just another offensive clinic from Matt Painter and this Purdue basketball team. Rutgers scored 71 points. That's usually enough to stick around in a game. Maybe you lose by, 8 or 10, especially playing against a team as offensively inclined as Purdue is. But last night, no. 71 points was not going to get it done with the way that Purdue was shooting the basketball and just how many open looks they generated. Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer each hit 7 threes. It's crazy. Braden Smith was 7 of 13. Fletcher Lawyer was 7 of 12. And when you have 2 players that hit a combined 14 threes, you're probably going to win that game. And if you're Rutgers, you're probably going to lose that game. And then you throw in Trey Kaufman-Renn just being an absolute beast, 8 of 10 shooting from the floor. And then you throw in Jakari Harris scoring 7 points off the bench in the first half, and Miles Colvin scoring 6 points off the bench in the first half, and they combined only missed 1 shot. Like Purdue's not losing that game. When they hit that many threes, continue to get great production from Trey Kaufman-Renn, and actually get some bench scoring, because that's been part of the issue with Purdue. They just don't get enough, from their bench. They did last night. They had a few guys come in and score before the game got out of hand. And it was really interesting. Rutgers did something that I hadn't noticed a team do all year against Purdue in terms of how they ran, or in terms of how they wanted to defend this Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Renn screen and roll. So, they would help from the corner, the strong side corner, when Trey Kaufman-Renn rolled to the bucket. And he'd just make 1 extra pass, an easy pass to the corner. And Purdue seemed to get a good look every time. That's why Fletcher Lawyer shot the ball so freaking well. Okay. And then on defense, Purdue did a really good job. in the second half. The first half, not so much. It helps when Dylan Harper picks up his second foul with 9 minutes left. With 9 minutes left in the second half, or excuse me, first half. Okay, and so he missed some time. That slowed Rutgers down a bit. There were some interesting moments, so they had to be like, you know what, like we have to put Dylan Harper back in, just because if we don't, like we're in trouble. And Rutgers scored the ball pretty well in the first half. They scored 41 points. Usually, you score 41 points in the first half, you're feeling pretty good going into the break. Except the Purdue shot 69% from the field and 65% from three in that first half. But they were only up 9 at the break. And I'm sitting at home on my couch with, my wife who went to Purdue. And she's like, oh, Purdue should win. The offense is really good. And I was like, I don't know about that. I don't think they're going to shoot 69% from the field and 65% from three again in the second half. And the fact that they were only up 9, kind of concerning. It's like, oh, could they not have played just like a little bit better? I don't know. And ended up not mattering because the offense didn't really drop off all that much in the second half. And the thing that did change, though, and why Purdue was able to pull away is, Rutgers did all the important things in the first half to beat Purdue. Sure, Rutgers turned it over 7 times in the first half, but they had forced Purdue into 8 first half turnovers. Okay, Rutgers had 7 offensive rebounds in that first half. They scored 12 paint points, which isn't that many, but they got to the free throw line 10 times. Okay, Rutgers was getting the ball inside. They were forcing turnovers, and most importantly, like they were hitting shots. The issue is they couldn't stop Purdue. It felt like every shot that they put up in that first half went in, and then in the second half, Purdue corrected themselves and they ended up, running away with it. Purdue kept scoring. Their defense got better. Okay, they only gave up 30 points in that second half. They stopped turning the ball over. Okay, they only turned it over once in the second half, and they quit giving up offensive rebounds. They only allowed 4 in that second half. So Purdue self-corrected. Rutgers cooled off a bit, and Purdue did not. Okay, like if they keep shooting the ball this well, they're not going to lose again. It's really that simple. Speaking of losing, we do live in Indianapolis, so I need to discuss the Indianapolis Colts. Free agency is happening. The Bears, like they're making trades to bring in some offensive linemen to help protect their guy. Colts, solid offensive line. They're probably going to draft a couple more in this draft. We'll see what they wind up doing with Braden Smith and Will Fries and the rest of these offensive linemen that Ryan Kelly, those 3 guys that are going to be free agents. We'll see what kind of winds up happening with them. But the Colts have more need than just on the offensive line. Okay. They need a quarterback. And I am just dying for them to sign Sam Darnold. He's the best guy available. I'm going to tell you why he's the best quarterback available when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy's Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and watch, maybe you're watching on Twitter or X, the Everything app. You can also watch there, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there and watch the stream. On Twitter, maybe you're listening via that good old Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you download your apps. Tony East of Locked On Pacers, he's set to join the show coming up at 11, where we're going to talk a little bit of Pacers and their win over the Rockets last night. Now, Colts, I need the Colts to sign Sam Darnold. This needs to happen. Okay, it is clearly the best way forward for the Colts. The Colts need a quarterback. Sam Darnold is a quarterback coming off of a great year. Great year. He was fifth in the NFL in passing yards. He was fifth in the NFL in passing touchdowns. He was sixth in quarterback rating. He was 12th in completion percentage at 66%. So that's still pretty good. I think we would all take that after what we've seen these last 2 years. And his touchdown to interception ratio was just under 3-1. He was 35 touchdowns to 12 picks, so almost 3-1. Like he put together a top 5 season amongst all quarterbacks statistically. Okay, now there are some concerns, though. There are some people that are going to push back on the idea of Sam Darnold. Okay, I don't know why, but there are. I do know why. Let's actually run through them. Okay, before last year, he'd put together 6 years of just bad football. Okay, now to be fair to him, he was stuck in New York playing for the Jets or in Carolina for 5 of those 6 years. Then he goes to San Francisco where he backs up Brock Purdy, who's going to get paid coming up here soon. Then last year, he leaves the 49ers. He goes to Minnesota, expecting to kind of be in this backup quarterback role because, you know, the Vikings had just been a first-round pick on J.J. McCarthy. Okay, so he's like, all right, I'm going to be a backup. But then J.J. McCarthy tears his meniscus out for the season, and he winds up actually being the starter, and he goes crazy for the Vikings. They go 14-3 just to lose in the first round of the playoffs. Okay, and he wasn't very good in that Week 18 game where they could have been 15-2 and been the 1 seed in the NFC. Okay, and so, you know, he leaves the season with a pretty bitter taste in everyone else's mouth. But that doesn't erase what he had done in the previous, 16 games that he had played in. Okay, now the question is, was he propped up? Was Sam Darnold only good because he was playing for Kevin O'Connell and they had good receivers like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and a really good tight end and TJ Hawkinson? Was he just a product of the environment that he was in? Because we've seen this happen with different quarterbacks before. We have. My question is, though, what quarterback isn't, partially a product of their environment? Like when you look at the best quarterbacks in the NFL, they all have a pretty good support system around them, like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow, the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL. What do all 4 of them have? A good head coach. All 4 of them have good head coaches. Tom Brady had the best head coach ever. Every successful quarterback has a good coach somewhere on their roster. Like for Mahomes, it's Andy Reid, the head coach. For Joe Burrow, it's Zach Taylor, his head coach. But for Josh Allen, it's Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, a guy that I'm actually very surprised is still employed as the offensive coordinator of the Bills. I thought he would leave for a head coaching job, but that didn't happen. Okay? So, yes, all those players are talented and they're good, but they also have a good head coach, just like how Sam Darnold is talented. He was a number 3 overall pick. If the Browns weren't stupid, then he probably would have gone number 1 overall that year, but instead they opted to take Baker Mayfield. Okay, either way, like you have to have a good coach somewhere on your roster for good quarterbacks to play well. Okay. Second, every good quarterback has good players around them. Patrick Mahomes has, or had a good offensive line around him for most of his career. The 2 years he didn't, he got blown out in the Super Bowl. You know what else he had or has? Travis Kelce, like one of the best tight ends ever. And he had Tyreek Hill there for a stint. One of the most explosive players we've seen in the history of the NFL. Josh Allen has a good running back in James Cook. The Bills went out and they got him Amari Cooper. They spent, an early second round pick on Keon Coleman. Lamar Jackson has weapons all around him. Joe Burrow's, he's throwing the ball to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Yet we aren't like questioning whether or not Joe Burrow's good just because he's throwing to those guys. Jared Goff, another guy who had a pretty outstanding season. Dude's got just a plethora of weapons around him and a really good offensive coach. Most of these quarterbacks have an average to great offensive line. Like good quarterbacks, it's not a coincidence that a lot of them, all of them, I would argue, have good coaches and good players around them. So I don't think that it's a knock when you say Sam Darnold played well with good players. That's what should happen. Okay? The concerning thing is the whole 6 years of no production. Why was he so bad for 6 years and then all of a sudden so great? And I think I have a solution as to why we've seen this leap from Sam Darnold. He goes to San Francisco where he sits under Kyle Shanahan for a year. And it was reported that Kyle Shanahan really liked him. Okay, and then he goes to Minnesota where he plays for Kevin O'Connell, another well-respected offensive-minded head coach in the NFL. Okay, like those are two of the best offensive coaches in the NFL. And I'm willing to bet that after Sam Darnold spent time playing for Adam Gase in New York, then Matt Rule in Carolina, he got to San Francisco and for the first time in his career, like actually learned something valuable. And then he was able to take that knowledge to Minnesota, where he got to play for Kevin O'Connell, where he then built off of that knowledge. And then we get this breakout season from him. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that Sam Darnold got away from bad coaching, bad supportive players, and just bad organizations in general. And all of a sudden, he was good. Like, I don't think that that's a coincidence at all. Okay? And he's going to carry the stuff that he's learned from, Kyle Shanahan and Kevin O'Connell into wherever he winds up playing next. And I hope that the Colts are that team. I hope the Colts are super aggressive in going and getting him. Okay? Like, overpay for him. Seriously. Because they need a quarterback. Like, Chris Ballard, if he wants to keep his job, needs a quarterback. Like, he has to have one if he wants to hold on to his job for a 10th year. Okay, that's just a very simple reality. Okay, if Shane Steichen wants to hold on to his job for a 4th year, like, he needs a quarterback. Okay, like, it makes sense for the Colts to go and get Sam Darnold because Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen are trying to save their jobs. Like, they have to win 10 games and make the playoffs this year. Okay, if they can win the division, like, they'll both get raises. Like, come on now. Okay, and when you evaluate the quarterback options for the Colts and you look at who's available in free agency and you look at Anthony Richardson, like, Sam Darnold's clearly the best option. Like it's not Justin Fields or Daniel Jones or Jameis Winston or Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers. It's none of those guys. It's not Russell Wilson. And like Sam Darnold or Anthony Richardson, I don't know how you pick Anthony Richardson when those are your two choices. Like, when you look at every single option that the Colts could start at quarterback next year, Sam Darnold is the best option. And he's not old. He's 27. Once again, younger than Joe Burrow. That's the go-to stat with Sam Darnold. It is the equivalent of Ryan Williams is 17. Ryan Williams, the starting wide receiver for Alabama. By the way, Justin Fields is 26. Okay, so like Justin Fields isn't even that much younger than Sam Darnold. Okay, so like Sam Darnold, he is the best answer for the Colts of any quarterback that is available. He clearly. Okay, and once again, the Colts should overpay for him. okay? Because they desperately need a quarterback. The issue is the Colts probably won't pursue him the way that he needs to be, or the way that they need to, because this is what's going to happen. Sam Darnold's going to go play for the the Steelers or someone like that, and then Chris Ballard, he'll sit up there after the draft, and someone will be like, "Hey, why didn't you sign Sam Darnold?" And then we'll get a nice little Chris Ballard. Just like a good old, takes two to tango, or, he wanted too much money. We didn't want to overpay. We're going to hear something like that. And if he brings up the whole it takes two to tango thing, I would like for someone to ask him why no one ever wants to tango with the Colts, like just to see what he would say. Okay. And then, after we don't get Sam Darnold, they're going to have to run Anthony Richardson out there after he beats out, the competition that they're bringing in, and Daniel Jones or Jameis Winston. Then the Colts will go 7-10, and then Jim Irsay may or may not fire Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, depending on how he's feeling. I'm not convinced that he will. I don't think he wants to go through this long process of trying to find a new coach and a new general manager. I just, given it the health struggles that he's had, I don't think he wants to do that, and I don't think he wants to fully turn his team, because that's what it is right now. The Colts are still his team. I don't think he wants to turn them over to his kids quite yet, and I don't blame him. If I owned an NFL team, I'm holding on to that sucker until I'm 6 feet under. It's just, I think that's how most of these NFL owners are. Look at Jerry Jones if you don't believe me. Coming up here in about 25 minutes, Tony East of Locked On Pacers. He's going to join the show, and it's going to be good because it's always good when Tony joins the show. The Pacers beating the Rockets last night. Big win for them. Rockets, that's a tough, physical basketball team. That game was tough and physical last night. Miles Turner, really big there down the stretch. Thomas Bryant had this 3-minute stretch in the first quarter where he just did everything. It was wildly impressive. So we're going to talk Pacers, what they did well last night, what they didn't do well last night. We're also going to talk about Andrew Nembhard a little bit. He's been struggling offensively. We're going to dive into his struggles. So Pacers, their win over the Rockets, why Haliburton played his best game of the year, and why Andrew Nembhard has been struggling when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
may one day be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you guys are having a nice week. So far, so good over here on my end. Indiana losing last night. Purdue, they might be back. Tony's coming up here in about 20 minutes to talk about the Pacers and just how well they're playing right now. And hopefully they continue to play this well. I thought we got the best game that we've seen from Tyrese Haliburton all year last night. Maybe. I would argue definitely the best game we've seen from him since the All-Star break. And I know that there's games where he scored more points and, probably had more assists and all that other kind of stuff. But I thought that he played really well. Here is Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle after the game talking about how well Tyrese Haliburton played.
Tyrese was great. He's learned how to adjust to all the different defenses. Tonight it's big physical guys. Other nights it's guys that are just denying him all, 94 feet. Other nights it's double teams. Other nights it's just, physical play, teams taking liberties and stuff like that. But he's adjusted to everything and has a great feel for, when he's got it going to, keep the run going and when to get other guys involved. And so, the balance has been great. It's one reason that his turnovers have been very low, as a general rule. And tonight, defensively, he really battled on the inside and came up with some big rebounds at big times.
Rick Carlisle, Pacers head coach right there, talking about Tyrese Haliburton and just how big of an impact he had on that game last night where they hosted the Houston Rockets. And the reason why I liked watching him play so much last night is, I'm going to probably talk about this for the rest of the year and probably ad nauseum whenever we get to the playoffs. But the shot selection for Tyrese Haliburton, it's so important. It's so important. Not only him looking for his shot, but like what shots he's looking for. And I think last night, this is like the best shot selection we've seen from him after the All-Star break. He took 16 shots last night. 8 of them were threes, as they should have been, because he shot the ball excellently last night. From like a percentage standpoint, he's like tracking to be one of the best three-point shooters in NBA history. He's at like 39% for his career. Like that's really good, especially when you factor in the fact that like it's not all catch and shoot. A lot of it is off the bounce or coming off of a screen. Last night, he was 5 of 8 from 3. And I think he should take around 8 threes a night because he is an excellent three-point shooter. The nights that bother me in terms of, how Tyrese Haliburton decides to take his shots, I hate the nights where he takes 10 shots and 8 of them are threes. Like last night, he took 8 threes, 4 mid-range jumpers, a shot with his foot on the 3-point line, and then 3 shots right at the rim. That's what it should look like for him. He needs to score at all 3 levels to be like his best self. Okay, and that's what he was last night. He finished the game with 28 points and 15 assists. He was plus 20. Okay, like that's impressive. Okay, he has been just amazing since returning from the All-Star break, playing like a first-team All-NBA caliber player. This was his best game, though. The playmaking was great. The shot selection was more than him just trying to hunt his 3 ball. And he and the Pacers are just so much better when he scores from all 3 areas of the floor like he did last night. The Pacers are also better when Andrew Nembhard scores the basketball. Okay? Like they are better when Andrew Nembhard is out here getting buckets. All right? And the issue is he hasn't been getting buckets here as of late. He only took, 6 shots last night. He was 2 of 6 from the floor. And, the thing with Nembhard is he's always going to play heavy minutes because he's just been great defensively this year. He's a better defender this year than he was last year. Part of this next opinion may just be because Aaron Nesmith has been out so much this year, but he's, Andrew Nembhard has been the Pacers' best defender this year. Maybe that changes with Aaron Nesmith back in the lineup, but like when you look at the Pacers and their lineups with like when you look at the 5 guys on the floor with the best defensive ratings, Andrew Nembhard's in all of them. He has been their best defender this year, and when the Pacers get to the playoffs, he's going to be the guy who defends the other team's best guard. If they draw the Bucks in the first round, he's going to guard Damian Lillard, as he should. Okay? Like, when he's on the floor, the Pacers are a net positive on the season because of his defense. Like, they're +5, which is like, that's a pretty solid net rating to have. And once again, it's because of the defense. And I know it's because of the defense because the offense just hasn't been very good this year. That's been the issue with Andrew Nembhard this season. He has been awful. Nothing short of awful on the offensive end of the floor. This is his 3rd year in the NBA. And, his rookie season and last year, he was a pretty reliable shooter. Shot 35% from 3 his rookie and second season. He's got like a nice little mid-range jump shot. He can get to the rim. He's a good passer, which makes sense because he just had the ball in his hands all the time when he was in college. But this year, he's just not as good. He's only shooting 31% from 3. That's a problem. Like 35% is the lowest you can be in terms of shooting the basketball from 3 and be like a valued offensive piece. Like, if you drop below that, it's like you are no threat whatsoever. Okay, and these shooting struggles are they're so prominent. Like they've been an issue for the last couple of months. Okay, he only shot 30% from 3 in January. He shot 21% from 3 in February. Like that's terrible. But to start the season, he was really good. In the month of December, he shot 39% from 3. After that, though, terrible. Major drop-off. From 39% to 31% to 21%. Like those are drastic changes. And he has to figure it out. He has to figure it out at some point. Like, he's got to figure out his shooting struggles. Like, because he's clearly got it in him. Like, we've seen it the first 2 years that he's played for this Pacers team. We saw it in the month of December when he shot 39% from 3. Like, I think everyone knows that he's capable of shooting the ball. He just has to figure out what's going on and why he's not knocking these shots down. Because the Pacers love their spacing, right? Like that's what this team is about. Play fast, space the floor. Okay, like that is what allows them to be a top 10 offense in the NBA these past couple of years. And this feels for the Pacers. Like, when Andrew Nembhard gets rolling and he's, offensively as good as he was last year, then it feels like the Pacers could take another step forward in terms of being better than a team like the Knicks. And we've seen him not only have success in the regular season, but we've seen him lead the offense in the playoffs. Because, Haliburton got hurt a little bit last year. There were some games where Tyrese Haliburton decided just to not show up. He's like, let me do like 35 minutes of cardio on this basketball court in the playoffs with everybody watching. And then against Boston, he had that 32-point, Andrew Nembhard, to be clear. Andrew Nembhard had that 32-point playoff game last year against Boston, against the best team on the planet. Tyrese Haliburton didn't play in that game. Rick Carlisle was like, Andrew Nembhard, you are going to run our offense against the best team in the world. Good luck. And he gave the Pacers a good chance to win that game. The Celtics just made 3 or 4 plays down the stretch that the Pacers did not. And that ended up being the difference. And so you sit back and, my favorite thing about this Pacers team is, it hasn't changed. It's because they've got like 9 guys that can play in a playoff series. It's a major advantage for them. It's an important advantage for them because their best players just aren't as good as, Boston's or New York's or Milwaukee's. Like when you look at the Eastern Conference and the standings and, the teams that are going to make the playoffs are the Pacers going to have the best player in any of these series? Like, if they play the Pistons in the first round, is Cade Cunningham going to be the best player in that series? He might be. Cade Cunningham, it's a really good player. Okay, that's a really, really good player. If they play the Bucks, Giannis is going to be the best player in that series. If they play the Knicks, Jalen Brunson is going to be the best player in that series. They play Boston, Tatum, obviously. They play Cleveland, Mobley, Mitchell, Garland, all three of them maybe. Not all three of them, but I think you catch my drift here. So because of that, like, the depth is so important for them. And Andrew Nembhard, not only defensively, but offensively, needs to be an important piece of that depth that allows them to, win some of these tough playoff games. Like, they need the depth. They need Andrew Nembhard's offense. They're especially going to need it when they play against Cleveland and Boston, because he's going to have to be on the floor for those series. Okay? Like, it has to happen. So, Pacers, big win last night. It's really interesting. Like, I didn't see anyone griping about Miles Turner on Twitter after the game. It's almost like he's really important and he was great in those final 6 minutes. Okay. I mean, just a really impressive game from him. Love it when Miles Turner is like super active. He had 4 blocks last night. That stat just doesn't feel correct. It felt like he had 4 in like a 30-second span because they couldn't grab a freaking rebound. They got crushed on the boards last night. The Rockets grabbed 58 rebounds. Usually when you grab 58 freaking rebounds, you win. But not last night. Not last night, because the Rockets are just horrific offensively. Only shot 41% from the floor. Only made half of their free throws. 13 of 26. They had 24 offensive rebounds. The Rockets did. That's crazy. They took 12 more shots than the Pacers, and the Pacers still held them to only 102 points, and they managed to put up 115 against a good defensive team. Going back to Miles Turner, man, he's just been really good this year. He's kind of, I'm not going to say he's returned to his old self, but like, he's much better at protecting the rim. He's still shooting the crap out of the ball. 4 of 8 from 3, 16 points, just letting it fly. Just incredible. Obi Toppin off the bench has been really good this year. Benedict Mathurin, he didn't play last night, hurt his wrist. Toppin's been good. Jarris Walker had a productive 10 minutes on the floor. Thomas Bryant just, comes out of the gate. Miles Turner picks up 2 fouls really quickly, and Thomas Bryant's like, not a big deal, sir. Not a big deal. I'm just going to score 10 points in 3 minutes. Whatever. McConnell didn't play a ton, only played 13 minutes. He didn't play super great. Ben Shepherd continues to be, another important bench piece for this Pacers team. Like once again, like the depth on this Pacers roster is pretty crazy. Like when you go to their bench, they've got like another like four or 5 guys that you trust in a playoff series, and it's why they have a chance to beat teams like Cleveland and probably not Boston, but the Pistons and the Bucks. It's just because there's so much depth. Like, you trust Obi Toppin, TJ McConnell, Ben Shepherd, and Benedict Mathurin in a playoff series. Like, that's 4 guys. And there have been moments this year where Jarris Walker has, looked like a guy that you could potentially trust in a playoff series. Okay. Like, it's not there consistently yet. So I have some reservations with that, but this Pacers team, man, like, they're playing as well as anyone right now. And I am very intrigued to see how they look in the playoffs against some of these better teams. Beating the Rockets, like, that's a really good win, because that's one of the better teams in the NBA. They should win they should. Not saying that they will, but they should win their next 2 games. They're at Atlanta on Thursday. They're at Atlanta on Saturday. Monday, they're at Chicago. They should win those 3 games. And then Tuesday, March 11th, so a week, 6 days from now, they have Milwaukee. It's a back-to-back, but that game is going to be important every time they play Milwaukee, because they're going to be, fighting for position in terms of who's going to be the 4 seed and host that first-round playoff series. I don't know if anyone's going to catch New York, who's currently sitting there in that 3 slot. The Pacers would have to get really hot, really fast in order for that to happen. So more talk on the Pacers when we come back here in about 5 minutes or so. Tony East, he's going to join the show. He just does an excellent job covering the Pacers. He's going to have a lot of thoughts. We're going to talk about Nembhard. We're going to talk about Haliburton and how great he's been. And you're not going to want to miss it. So Tony East of Locked On Pacers, he joins here in about 5 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Big news for the Dan Dockett Show. We got Tim Legler today at 1:30. So you don't want to miss that. Tim Legler always does a great job covering hoops, just like friend of the program, Tony East, does covering the Indiana Pacers. Tony, what's going on, man? How are you?
I cannot ever be put in the same breath as Tim Legler ever again. One of the best to ever do it, man.
He's awesome.
So good.
He's so nice, too. Like, there's some people that Dan will have me reach out to that are not the nicest people in the world. Tim, though, super nice. He's great.
Yeah. I wish ESPN would use him, let's say, better, because he is just awesome.
I completely agree. I think ESPN should use you. You know, if they're like, hey, Pacers are rolling right now, who do we call? You call Tony East. But before we talk about them, I have to ask, is Indiana good at basketball? The Hoosiers.
I mean, they were good for 39 minutes yesterday. Unfortunately, last time I checked, college games are still 40 minutes. So I'm going to have to go with a maybe right now. It's so weird. Like, every game, I feel like if they win, I feel like they'll make the tournament. And if they lose, I feel like they won't. And right now, I feel like they won't. So I guess I have to. It's just so weird, like, knowing their coach is gone and they might make the tournament. They might not. It's like, I don't know how to feel after all their games. I'm finally watching again, though. They are playing a little better, at least. They
are. They're defending and starting to make some threes. And it's you know what's crazy, man? Like, if they make the tournament, this will be the first time in a decade that they've made the tournament 3 times in a 4-year span.
4 years. Hey, they had 2 wins in the Woody era in the tournament. Like, they're kind of in the perfect spot for me. I know this is a stupid, like, fan take for sure, but I want them to be one of those 11 or 12 seeds that get the what's it called? The play-in in the first 4 games.
Yeah.
Because the year they played Wyoming, you know, they lost to St. Mary's in the first round, but they won a game. Like, they beat Wyoming, and I was like, yeah, all right, we won a tournament game. You know, it's like it's not impressive to beat Wyoming, but it was really fun. So I like the first 4 as long as they win. So I kind of hope they get that again. I loved it.
I'm with you. I'm hoping the same thing for Arkansas, because Dayton's only two hours away.
That's right.
And I can go. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, also writes about the Fever and the Pacers as well. He's joining the show to talk a little bit of Pacers, their win last night. How about Miles Turner last night, man? Those last 6 minutes, he was just awesome.
Holy cow. And he struggled before that, right? Sengun was awesome last night too, 25 and whatever. And the post-ups were like the only good Rockets offense all night. Turner had early foul trouble. I thought, man, it's not, the Pacers are going to have to find some funky solutions. And would they?
Whoop, I think he dropped. Tony, you there?
What just happened? I don't know what that was.
That was really weird.
I'm sure. Well, anyway. Yeah, when they fell behind with like 8.5 minutes to go, I thought, oh, man, like Turner hadn't had a good night, and they're going to need to find some funky solutions. No funky solution required. Miles Turner was the solution. I mean, the Rockets aren't a good shooting team, right? They made 9 threes last night, and they have 2 good guards. One wasn't playing, and Jalen Green wasn't playing well, so they needed to score at the rim. And for 6 minutes, Miles Turner said, no, you're not going to do that. I'm not going to let you guys do that. I mean, he had that one possession where he stopped or deterred 6 shots just by himself, and finally got on the glass a little bit after struggling there earlier in the game, and hit the dagger 3. I mean, it wasn't like an awesome 48-minute performance for him, but when they fell behind for the first time of the game, for the first time in the second half, he was sensational the rest of the game. They absolutely don't win without him, and I think he's been playing not as good as he was like in his mid-20s, but maybe the best defense he's played since the Pacers got Tyrese Haliburton since mid-December. And last night was like the perfect showing of why I think that. Like, he saved the game for them.
He really did. He was awesome. The Pacers also shot the ball really well. Haliburton was really good. Once again, joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers. You can follow him on Twitter at Tony R. East. And it's not very often that you get out-rebounded by 23. You give up 24 offensive rebounds, and you win. Like, it's just like the fact that the Pacers won that game last night, it speaks to how bad the Rockets' offense is. I mean, to only score 102 points and get 90 shots up is just really, really bad. But at the same time, Pacers defense much better this year than it was last year. What has been the biggest difference for Indiana in terms of them becoming just a much better team on the defensive end?
There's a threshold of offensive rebounds where I can't even describe this. Like, if a team gets 10, that's like a normal good offensive rebound game. If a team gets 15, that's like why they won. If a team gets 20 or more, I honestly think it's because they were just missing so many shots, right? Like, it's actually kind of interesting how often a team doesn't win when they get 20-plus offensive rebounds in the NBA. And I think Houston reached that point last night where, like, look, it's obviously bad for the Pacers. They gave up that many rebounds. I'm not saying this to say it's a good thing for the Pacers, but I am saying the Rockets just missed a lot of shots. They shot like 39, 40% from the field, and that's part of getting them the offensive rebounds is having a bad night shooting. The Pacers defense has been better this year. I thought February they were a little rockier than they were in January, but this is the best defense they've played since they got Haliburton, I would say, for like an extended stretch, and it's not like so good. I would say they've been about average, a little above that, maybe in the calendar year 2025, but that's huge for them because they are one of the best 10-5 offenses in the league. That's all they need to win, and they've known that for forever. And it's kind of been everybody. I think people have acknowledged forever that between Nembhard and Nesmith and Turner and Siakam at times, and they have enough good defenders that people were so perplexed how they weren't a better defense. And so to finally have it all come to a head where, like last night they mixed in zone. They never do that, and it worked. And then Turner's actually thwarting stuff in a way he hasn't for a while, and Nembhard puts Jalen Green in jail the way he has for other guys. And he didn't play well in February, but he played great last night. And Nesmith's playing the best ball of the season right now. Like, when they have all those guys playing at or near their best level on defense, they can be a good defensive team. It takes time from other guys, though. Like, Haliburton's on this crazy run of steals right now, and Thomas Bryant's rebounding has really helped them defensively. Like, they've gotten a lot of other solutions to go their way, and they've really simplified things in mid-December after that loss to the Hornets that was just so dreadful. They've really just been locked in and connected. And I know that that's like a lazy way to describe it, is just more focus and more practice time. But I truly think that's a lot of what it is like they got embarrassed so bad at home by Charlotte. They were like, we got to change something. We got to change the way we approach the defensive side of the ball. And since then, they've been incredibly good on that end, and they can use their defense to beat good teams sometimes. They did it last night. The Rockets aren't a good offensive team, but they defended well enough and shut down an only good ball handler in Jalen Green. It's kind of interesting because no one expected this to be how the Pacers would ever win a game ever, and they've won many games on their defense this calendar year.
They really have. Like, since the turn of the calendar, I think they played like 26 or 27 games, and they're like top 10 in defensive rating during that stretch. Like, the defense has just been really, really good. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, and part of that's been, I think, a large part of that is just like Aaron Nesmith's healthy, and when you have Nesmith and Nembhard on the floor together, like that's a really good pairing of guys who can defend on the perimeter. And like you mentioned, Miles Turner has been playing really well here as of late. What have you made of Aaron Nesmith as he's kind of ramped it all the way up since, hurting his ankle earlier in the season?
Yeah, this is his best stretch of the year, I think, since the All-Star break, the way he's been playing on both ends of the floor. Sorry, my cat is screaming at me because he's being bad. He's really found a groove on offense, and I think that they really rely on him defensively because of his size on that end of the floor too. And so when he's really gelling the way he can as like a powerful defender, and he's got his fouls down a little too, which is like his biggest kryptonite as a player by a mile, I would say. He just really adds to his team, and I think it's important he had this stretch as like a reminder of like why they went back to him as a starter, right? Because he was playing fine, but not exceptional after returning from injury, and then they still went back to him and changed that starting five, and I think that helped Mathurin. But to see him really put it together these last couple of weeks, both in terms of some good defensive games in there, the way he was trapping Kobe White, like, changed the game against Chicago, a couple days ago earlier this week, and he played great against Memphis and against the Clippers and the Pacers. Probably best two performances since the start of February. He was great there, and he's paired it with, obviously, look, when you hit 6 threes and have a career high scoring, everybody's going to talk about your offense, but he's like handling the ball okay and finishing at the rim. He hit the biggest shot of the game last night to me when he had an and one floater to give the Pacers the lead back in the middle of the fourth quarter. I mean, he's not going to shoot this well, like, for the rest of the season, like in total, not even just threes, but the way he's really kind of put it all together coming out of the break has really been important for the Pacers because outside of Haliburton, pretty much everybody else has been up and down outside of Nesmith, who's been really stabilizing for them as they try to get rolling. He's been really good on both ends of late, like the best you can expect from him.
Yeah, he's been awesome, and it's been really fun to watch because Aaron Nesmith just brings a little extra energy, and I think he brings it out of everybody else as well. The only
Totally agree.
downside isn't the right word, but I guess the one thing about him playing more is Jarris Walker he doesn't get to play as much. He played 10 minutes last night because Matherin was out with his wrist thing, but he played the other night for the Mad Ants and he had like a triple double. Where are you at with Jarris Walker and kind of his future in the NBA?
Yeah, he's good. I mean, I was at that Mad Ants game, and like last year he was fine with the Mad Ants. I don't mean that to say he was like bad or anything, but he was very clearly the best player on the floor, on Tuesday. And like Jared Rode was in that game for the 905. He got promoted to a two-way that day. Frank Kaminsky was playing, like Johnny Furphy and a couple these guys aren't good or like great. They're two-way guys. They're on the fringe of the NBA, but Jarris was way better than them, right? Like he's certainly an NBA level player. I keep saying this to people when I talk about him and his situation with the Pacers, and this feels so lazy for me to say. Like I'm supposed to, you talk about sports. We're supposed to have takes and opinions and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I just keep landing on this. It just kind of sucks, and it doesn't suck that like the Pacers are doing something wrong. They're playing the 10 guys that give them the best chance to win every game, and Jarris Walker has played better this year, and he's the 11th guy. Like that just kind of stinks for him. He said himself in late December, we talked to him at a practice, that he felt like his season had been full of ups and downs, right? He had been inconsistent. And a lot of the lineup data said that he was the player that was, the worst fit in a lot of 5-man lineups. And he's clearly got some skill. Like he can pass, he can handle, his shot's better, his defense is better than last year. However, he has some lazy turnovers every game, and his defense is still inconsistent. And like, for a team trying to win and for a head coach in Rick Carlisle who loves to know what he's getting out of his players, like that can't really happen, right? And so it felt like he would be the 11th guy when Nesmith came back, and that's been the case. And I don't think the Pacers are wrong to make that choice, right? They're the 4th or 5th best team in the East, and they could win around again this year. It just stinks. And they built their team this way because they play fast, and you need depth to do that for 48 minutes. And they're not even that old. They only have 2 30-year-olds in their rotation. It's so rare that a team picks in the lottery like they did with Jarris and then is immediately in the conference finals. And so your goals really change, and it's really hurt him. And I think next year they have to figure it out, whether it's they play him a lot or they trade him. They didn't do that with Goga a few years ago. And obviously I think Jarris Walker's got more potential than Goga, even though Goga's good, but they didn't play Goga in year 3 and then they ended up cutting him, right? And they're not going to cut Jarris Walker, but they got to figure out pretty soon what the plan is, because from that time in late December when he said he was playing up and down, he did not play up and down. He was good. He was mostly up and putting together good performances for the Pacers and defending key players. So I don't know what they do about it. Like this season, I don't know if they need to like actually do something about it, whether that's make a change or anything. I think they can say through gritted teeth, this sucks. But in terms of his future in the NBA, I think this summer they have to figure out, are they trading away someone else to play Jarris Walker, or are they trading Jarris Walker for value that makes more sense for the Pacers? Because an 8th overall pick who's playing well, not playing, it just sucks, and they've got to figure out a way to make it not suck.
It really does suck because there's a part of me, joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers. You can follow him on Twitter at Tony R. East. Like there's this part of me that's like they're going to trade him to a place where he's going to be able to step in and play, and he's going to be really good really fast. Like that's just kind of what I feel like we're headed towards. Because like you said, like there's been some ups and downs this year, but I feel like he's been more up than down. But like the Pacers have like 10 guys that, like if they had to play 12 minutes or more in a playoff series, you're like, yeah, that's fine. And it's just tough to break into the rotation when you're on that kind of roster and you're this young.
And no team plays 11 guys. Nobody can do it.
Yeah, none. And so it's just, I'm with you. Like it sucks. I kind of feel bad for him. I will say, or I want to switch gears. The fact that it's taken me 15 minutes to get to Tyrese Haliburton, given how well he's played, is probably not okay. Why is he all of a sudden playing like a first team all NBA guy?
Yeah, he's been that good, right? Like I said this yesterday, that I don't think he's going to make All-NBA because he started so bad, but it's not unreasonable to me that he's going to sneak into the conversation, especially as more guys go out and eligible for the awards now. He's been unbelievable. The short answer is he's making like every 3 he takes. Last night was his 6th straight game, 50% or better from deep. And, he's not a guy like he's not taking Aaron Nesmith catch and shoot threes that someone else create. Like he's taking tough threes that he creates for himself. If he's making 50% or more, he's going to look exceptional. And the passing's been amazing. I mean, he's had a double-double every game since the break, except for Memphis, where he had 9 assists. What was he thinking? Should have had one more in that one. I mean, this is close to the best he's played over a 7 or 8 game stretch for the Pacers, like ever. You know, he had some better stretches, I think, in late December, early January last season, but this is really close to that. And it's everything. It's the threes, it's the passing, it's multiple steals every game. And they're at the point now where it's like, the lead's slipping, put in Tyrese Haliburton, they go back up 10. Like, no one can guard him right now. And so teams are doing the last 2 games the Pacers have played, their opponent has at some point said, well, we got to put 2 on the ball. And so he'll come around to screen and, there's 2 Rockets defenders, and he passes it to someone else, and then Andrew Nembhard sets up a 3 for somebody else. And, like, Haliburton gets no stat credit for that, but that basket was possible just because he's on the floor. Like, he's been that good of late that teams have to change their defense to guard him, and it still doesn't stop the Pacers. And, you know, he called it, like, flow state or whatever. He's just playing awesome, and when the shots go in, everybody's got to adjust to you. But I think the time off for All-Star really helped him, right? I wrote this a couple of games ago. Like, between the 2023 World Cup and the All-Star break that just happened, he's basically always been doing something, right? Like a season, a long playoff run, the Olympics, rehabbing. Last year's All-Star game was in Indy, and he was like the face of it, basically. Like, he's had so much going on from a basketball perspective that obviously I think he would have preferred to be an All-Star, but to have, 5-6 days to just go to Mexico, watch The Wire, read, chill out for a bit, like, was really important for him to detach and, take a break. And I really think that's the case for him this year, because he mentioned when he was slumping and he kind of broke out of it in early December that he found the joy in basketball again. And, like, that screamed somebody who needed a break to me. And so when he got a break, now he looks awesome, and he's not going to shoot like this forever, and his teammates aren't going to make every shot off his passes forever, but he looks way better. He looks faster. He's beating defenders off the dribble in a way he wasn't earlier this season, and that part I think can hold. So I think he's going to continue to put up at least pretty good stats, not as good as he's been of late, and that's going to make it really hard for anyone to knock the Pacers out of the top 6 of the East. And if they can stay top 5, they'll be thrilled with their seeding, and it's all because he's been awesome of late. He's been just tremendous.
He has been. One of the big things I've been harping on, probably a little bit too much, especially when you just said that, he's got 6 straight games now where he shot 50% or better from 3. I think that there are some nights where he hunts his 3-point shot a little bit too much. And yeah. He'll have games where he takes 12 shots and 10 of them are threes. And, on the nights where you're like 5 of 10, like that's fine. But like you said, like, you're not going to shoot 50% from 3 for the rest of forever. I really liked how he played last night. Like, he took 16 shots, 8 of them were threes. He should probably take about 8 a game, because, like, it's maybe too early for this, but, like, he's like pacing to be one of the best 3-point shooters we've ever seen. Just from like a percentage standpoint. And as you mentioned earlier, like, he's not like a catch and shoot 3 guy. He's like hitting like step back shots and side step threes and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, take 8 a game, but also like take like 4 or 5 layups and a few pull-up jumpers as well. Have you noticed any like difference in the type of shots that he's taking?
Yeah, I do. And I think that's why I talked about his speed, and the word I keep using, this is a made up word, but I call it wiggle. Like, when he can get by guys, and these aren't like, oh my gosh, he beat an awesome defender off the dribble. But like, when they played Toronto last week, he friggin' cooked Jakob Poeltl a few times. Like, beat him so bad at the rim for easy layups. And Jakob Poeltl's not a good perimeter defender, but Haliburton wasn't beating anybody like that earlier this season, right? Like, he had a bucket against the Bulls where late isolation, late shot clock, everybody knows Haliburton shooting, beats Josh Giddey so bad, and then drills a lefty floater. What? It's like, he wasn't beating guys like, again, these aren't awesome defenders I just referenced, but he wasn't beating anybody like that earlier in the season. And so I think part of being able to get his 3 off has been some speed and wiggle to create separation, but it's also allowing him to get to those shots you're describing, the 2s. And he's obviously very efficient on those 2, and they're easier shots. And getting 2 feet in the paint, like deep in the paint, not just like the elbows, has always been a nice kind of tell of what kind of game Haliburton's going to have. And he can just dime up anybody when he gets in there. Defenses freak out about him, and the floater kind of unlocks it all when it's going, because then they have to respect the shot and the pass and like everything. And he's been taking them a few times recently. He had a huge one late in the fourth quarter last night on the right wing, and he's got the floater going. He's got the speed to get by guys and get through them. And I agree with you. I don't know what the exact right ratio is. I think 8 threes, if he can get them up every game, is very healthy. But, something like 40 to 50% of his shots should be 2s, I think. And last night was perfect. You get 8 of each. He led the team in free throws because he was able to get all the way to the rim. Like, when he's able to actually beat guys off the bounce and create that separation, turns out he can make more shots. He looks just way better at everything.
He does. It's really good. My favorite stat on Haliburton this year, talk about him getting to the rim. His field goal percentage inside 10 feet is better than Miles Turner's, which is crazy.
That's nuts.
He's just really good when he gets in there. Last thing on Haliburton here. Which do you enjoy more? Did you enjoy his rendition of Stronger by Kelly Clarkson? Like, would you rather watch that, or would you rather watch people play Deal or No Deal there in Cambridge?
Deal or No Deal. I love Deal or No Deal. I used to watch it with my mom all the time. The Masked Singer stuff is funny because, like, I hear these guys' voice all the time, so I know who it is and what they're singing. But the fans don't, and it makes me laugh that I'm like, it's obviously Tyrese. Like, if they did this section right by Media Row, it'd be so easy. It is funny that twice now the Pacers have been up by enough points in the third quarter that they've had, like, they've been able to watch the Jumbotron specials because TJ McConnell had that moment where he was all embarrassed about them showing that he likes to show Vampire Diaries, right? It's always funny when they're winning by enough that the players can watch that media day stuff and be all embarrassed in front of the crowds. But Tyrese leaned into it. He was dancing, even though he is not a good singer. It was quite bad.
Joined by Tony E. Stuff. Locked on Pacers. Okay, so you brought up, or I guess I brought it up, but do you watch Deal or No Deal Island? Because my wife loves that show.
I have heard of that show. I actually haven't watched it, though, but I've heard it's very good.
Dude, she's
I'm
just
sure your
like,
wife would tell me.
She's like, clear the calendar, Jonathan. The new episode drops on this day at this time. She's like, no Pacers basketball. We're watching Deal or No Deal Island. And I'm just like, you know what? That's fine.
Have you watched it? Is Howie on it?
He was, so I think they changed the banker every year. So he was the banker the first season. And it's really good. Like, so Amelia, she really likes like Survivor and Deal or No Deal, and they just kind of combine them both.
Perfect combo.
Yeah. It's really good. It's fun. There's some drama stuff that I'm kind of like, I'm good. I'd rather watch like Wizards Hornets, but do your thing. Actually, that may not be true.
Those two teams catching strays, but I saw this yesterday, and I'm gonna rant if you're gonna let me rant about basketball.
Yeah.
There was an article, I think it was an On3, that was like about Cooper Flagg, and it said, would Cooper Flagg want to play for the Wizards or the Hornets? Should he stay in school? Those teams are going to suck next year, too. Like, is he just going to stay in school forever? This argument made no sense to me. It was so stupid. I hate that stuff. You think he reclassified to go to school early to be in the NBA later? No, he's obviously going pro. It doesn't matter. It made me mad.
No, I'm with you. I don't know if you know who Aaron Torres is, but he comes on my show for every now and then, and he'll go on Dan's. And he doesn't think Cooper Flagg will stay. And this is actually an interesting take. You said what?
There's no way.
That's where I'm at. But he thinks that sooner rather than later, we'll see players start staying in college more because, brands like Nike and Jordan, these like big shoe companies will want them to stay and they'll pay them a lot too because they think that, or he thinks, I don't know if this is true or not, that like college basketball players are just a little bit more marketable than NBA guys. My thing is like, I don't know, like you play like 100 NBA games compared to like 40 college games. I feel like you would want the NBA guy, but I don't know.
So I think it will help like the 10th best college player stay, for example. Like with Flagg, you could make the argument he'll make more at Duke next year than the NBA, like next year specifically. But that means he makes the max in the NBA 1 year later, and Duke can never pay him $50 million, right? So, like, I understand, like, if you're looking at 1 year, maybe he could make more. But at some point, you can't be in college anymore. And in the NBA, after 4 years, you can make way more. The sooner you get to the NBA, the better, always, to me.
I completely agree. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers. Last thing for you, and I'll let you go. Andrew Nembhard, like, in the month of December, shoots like 39% from three, looked pretty good offensively. And it has just been a steady decline since then. Only shot like 30% from three in January, 21% last month in February. Why has he struggled so much offensively these past couple months?
Yeah, so his offensive game has never been like so consistent. You know, he's definitely more of a defensive guy for them. But you're right that it's felt really worse too. Like I consider signature shots a stretch for like a role player, but like his shot to me is either an elbow jumper when he takes his dribble into it, or that one where he like bumps off his defender 6 feet away and then kind of fades away and hits it. And when those aren't really like there for him, he's really reliant on his shooting. And some stretches of time, he just looks like, oh man, when he's not hitting the threes, he's not giving them much at all on offense. And last month specifically, like they really needed him to be great. When McConnell was out, he was running the second unit. And, you know, we saw the playoffs last year, they're playing Boston. It was a great defense. He's like cooking these guys all night and getting to the rim. And like, he's better at that stuff than jump shooting. But when that stuff isn't there and he needs to run a unit and he's not looking great, like it stands out like a sore thumb, right? It was so rough at times last month. And as for the why, I don't have a good answer. Like I kind of think that it's just what he is on offense at this stage of his career is kind of a inconsistent guy who I think is maybe a little overrated as a lead option, but is a good shooter in the right catch and shoot moments. And what I've come to think about with him is, you know, it seems like when he doesn't have time to think, and I don't mean this in a negative way, like when it's 4 seconds on the shot clock and he catches, he's more reliable. Like he just goes to his move and shoots and hits, or he, you know, puts on the floor and scores. When he has like time to think in the lane, or, you know, a moment where he pauses, it really throws off his rhythm. And so last month when he was kind of asked to do more in a bigger role, and, you know, Haliburton getting better means he's got more space on the floor. I actually think at times that thinking can hurt him. And so earlier in the season, he wasn't thinking as much, especially when he came back from injury. And the last couple games, he's bounced back a little bit. I think it's on the Pacers to try to get him into situations where he's just not thinking at all, and he's all instinct. Because in those moments, he looks great, right? That's where his defense shines too. But you're absolutely right that the shot has escaped him quite a bit.
Are you saying that Tyrese Haliburton should give him the ball with like 2 seconds left on the shot clock, 30 feet away from the bucket?
To get those grenades, you know, those grenades suck for everybody except for Andrew Nembhard. He just steps in and scores.
He does. It's great. And I just, you know, someone asked me the other day, like, what's the Pacers ceiling? And like, if they keep playing like this, like, I think they win a playoff series. You know, whether they're playing Milwaukee or Detroit, I don't think it really matters. I think I like them more than both, even though like when you're playing Giannis, like that is obviously very concerning. But my thing is like, if we get, you know, the Andrew Nembhard who was scoring, who had like a few 20-point games in the playoffs last year and had that 32-point effort in Game 3 against Boston, like if that guy shows up, then would I pick them to beat Boston or Cleveland? No, but I would expect them to push them a little bit more. Is Nembhard kind of returning to what he was offensively last year? Is that kind of the thing for the Pacers to kind of take them to the next level?
Yeah, it is really important, right? He was good in the playoffs on offense last year too, against, you know, the Bucks and the Knicks and even really the Celtics too, and that was massive for the Pacers to be better. So whatever their ceiling is, I kind of agree with you. It's probably second round. I mean, I don't think health permitting, I don't think they can beat Boston or Cleveland. But if Nembhard's good in the playoffs, they can beat anybody but those top 2 teams, I think. And if he's not, then they'll have to flounder and figure it out.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what they look like, because I'm trying not to get my hopes up, Tony. But it's like they've been top 10 in offense and defense for like the last 2 months. And like, if you're that good on both ends of the floor, then like theoretically you can beat anyone. So we'll see. We're only, it's March. So we're 2 months away from playoff basketball?
Yeah, their biggest game of the season's coming up next week with Milwaukee too. I mean, that could decide if they have home court or not.
Yeah, Tuesday. Can't wait. Tony, thanks for your time, man. You were great as always.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
See you. That is Tony East. You can check him out on Twitter at Tony R. East, also host of Locked On Pacers. He loves the Pacers. He does an excellent job covering them. When we come back here in about 2.5 minutes or so, Indiana loses last night to Oregon. Why they lost? Mike Woodson, a little heated. I got that audio for you when we come back here in about 2.5 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. Maybe you're watching on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith. Maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app. However you're listening, it is greatly, greatly appreciated. Big thanks to the one and only Tony East of Locked On Pacers for joining me in that last segment to talk a little bit of Indiana Colts, Indiana Pacers. Moving on, it is Wednesday, which means it is over the hump day here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo! Hump day!
No, as the coach, I gotta get us over that hump. I gotta get them comfortable, knowing that you're gonna be in close games and you gotta make plays coming down the home stretch. I mean, in the tournament, we were right there. I just didn't get them over the hump, man. And that's something that I live with every day of my life. Because I truly believe that was the team to really make some noise and get to the finals, and I just couldn't get them over the hump.
Mike Woodson talking about how he's just never been able to get any of his teams over the hump, and he couldn't do it last night. A couple plays down the stretch really changed that game. That dude hitting like a 30-foot three to put him, or Oregon's player hitting like a 30-foot three to put him up was just really brutal. Indiana losing last night in what was a really good game. Final score doesn't show how close that game really was. Oregon hit all of their free throws down the stretch, and that is going to be a major talking point of this game. That game last night was incredibly physical. Like, just watching that game, the physicality really stood out, and the fact that Indiana only took 7 free throws. 7 free throws to Oregon's 21 just doesn't seem to make a ton of sense, especially when you consider that Indiana was like going to the bucket. The fact that Oregon didn't foul 7 times in the second half is absurd, especially with how much Indiana gets to the bucket. 40 of their shots were not threes. Malik Renew and Omar Ballo got the ball on the block a ton. And somehow, someway, Oregon didn't foul them 7 times. It's crazy. Meanwhile, Oregon got into the 1-and-1 with 8.5 minutes left to go in that second half. Meanwhile, Oregon didn't foul 7 times. That's insane. Mike Woodson was rightfully so very upset about it after the game. Here's Mike Woodson talking about the officiating.
I mean, we had our chances, but listen, guys, in a physical game like this, it can't be 21-7. You gotta be kidding me. 21-7 on free throws. It's bull. It just can't be not in a physical game. They're a physical team, and it can't be that lopsided. It's impossible.
Did you think that was mostly with Ballo and Renew inside, or?
No, I'm just saying it can't be 21-7.
What was the ref's message to you?
Well, again, it's what it is. I can't go back and get it. Right. But in a physical game like that, where both teams are battling their asses off, you can't punish one team and put one team at the line for 21 times and the other team only get there 7 times. That's all.
Awful, I say. I agree with Mike Woodson. It was pretty bad. That game, like I said, was just incredibly physical, and it favored Oregon because they got to the line way more. They made 19 of their 21 free throws, which is crazy. Meanwhile, Indiana was 3 of 7. And I don't think the refs dictated the outcome of that game. Indiana still had a chance down the stretch to make some plays, but I don't know if Indiana had taken 14 free throws. I think that would have helped. Okay, part of why the free throw discrepancy was that large was because Indiana fouled late, and to Oregon's credit, they made the front end of like all of their 1-and-1s, and but even before that, Oregon had taken like twice as many free throws. And look, that's part of why it's tough to win on the road. Calls don't tend to go your way as often as they do when you're at home. And the other part of why it was really tough to win at Oregon is because that Nate Biddle dude was problematic. I mean, he was tough, man. Malik Renew really struggled with his size. Renew was 4 of 12 from the floor. Felt like every time he touched the ball, he got swallowed up. It looked like Braden Smith playing against SEC guards. Okay, Malik Renew was just undersized, trying to play center against Nate Biddle. I think that's why we saw him share the floor with Omar Ballo a little bit more often. Like, it was just clear that Biddle Renew matchup wasn't great. And so I think we got too many minutes with Ballo and Renew on the floor together. There was no spacing when that was happening. Like, Nate Biddle just sat in the paint with Ballo out on the perimeter. And like, it didn't work. Like, there just wasn't enough space. And what I think should have happened is Omar Ballo should have played 30 minutes. Malik Renew probably should have played closer to 15 last night, because Omar Ballo was much more effective. And while Omar Ballo did play 30 minutes, Malik Renew played 27. Just once again, just too much time together on the floor. And Ballo was, 5 of 7 from the floor. He had 12 rebounds. He protected the rim, made things tough. Meanwhile, you got Malik Renew, who's 4 of 12 from the floor. Like it was pretty obvious early that Malik Renew was struggling with Nate Biddle. And Omar Ballo should have played 30 minutes, and Malik Renew should have played closer to 15. Mackenzie Mbako shouldn't have played at all. I mean, he was just brutal. Didn't make a shot in the first half. He had like a 3-minute stretch there in the second half where he hits 2 threes and he hits 2 free throws. And it happened. And I was like, here we go. Like, Mackenzie Mbako, he's going to score like 12 in the half, and he's going to be a real difference maker. After he made that second three, didn't notice him again. He wasn't impactful defensively. And when he's not scoring, he shouldn't see the floor. So kudos to Mike Woodson for making sure that didn't happen. Like, this was just another game where Indiana played well enough to win, but for whatever reason, they just couldn't quite get over that hump. And, you have to have a guy who makes a play down the stretch, and they didn't have that. They didn't have a guy who stepped up and was able to make the one deciding play. Oregon did. They had that, steal on Trey Galloway that was really big. And then, of course, the Strasburg guy, whatever his name was, he hits that big 3 from like 30 feet away. So big game for Indiana coming up when they play against Ohio State. I believe that game is on Saturday. It's senior night. They need that one. Like, they have to have it. If they want to make the NCAA tournament, they need that one, and then probably a game or two in the NCAA tournament. At the same time, though, at the same time, though, yeah, that game's on Saturday at 3:45, hosting Ohio State. They need this game so that they can make the NCAA tournament. They probably need a game or two in the Big Ten tournament as well. It'll be a tough game because Ohio State is a tough team, also working really hard to make the NCAA tournament. And, we'll see whether or not they do. But I don't know. They need that one. And I want to say Indiana's good, but after last night, how do I say that? I don't know. Purdue, they are good. Are they back? Yes. Did they ever leave? I don't think so. Just an offensive clinic last night, hanging 100 up on Rutgers. First half wasn't great. It's like, well, Jonathan, they scored 50. Yeah, but they gave up 41. In the second half, though, they did a much better job of just not turning the ball over and rebounding the ball well and doing all of those important things. So Purdue, they look like they're fully back on track. Braden Smith continues to just be a stud. He hit 7 threes last night. So did Fletcher Lawyer. Trey Coffin-Wren continues to be a beast. Just really good players up there in West Lafayette. And, are they good enough to make a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8? I don't know. Like, the matchup aspect for them is going to be so important. Do they play teams with big athletic guards? If they do, then I probably won't pick them to win. It's just the very simple reality of it. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, I'm not picking the Colts to win really anything. unless they sign Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is clearly the guy for the Colts. I'm going to tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket. 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you guys are having a nice week. Indiana losing last night to Oregon. Purdue crushing Rutgers as they should. And I need the Colts to sign Sam Darnold, and I need him to do it as quickly as possible because the Colts need a quarterback. And Sam Darnold is coming off a season in which, statistically, he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football. He was 5th in the NFL in passing yards, 5th in passing touchdowns, 6th in quarterback rating, 12th in completion percentage at 66%. Oh, how Colts fans would love to see a quarterback complete that many passes. And his touchdown to interception ratio was just under 3-1. He was at 35 touchdowns to 12 interceptions thrown. Okay, like that is a top 5 season statistically amongst all quarterbacks. And there are some concerns, though. There's some people who would push back on the idea of Sam Darnold. Like, let's run through them. Okay, because I don't think that all of them are valid. And the one that is, I think I have a pretty decent argument against, right? So the biggest concern is before last year, he'd put together 6 seasons of just bad football. I do think, to be fair to him, though, we need to remember that he was playing in New York for the Jets or Carolina for 5 of those 6 years. And those aren't exactly great franchises. And then his 6th year, he was a backup for Brock Purdy. Okay. And then last year, he goes to Minnesota. He's going to be the backup. J.J. McCarthy tears his meniscus. He doesn't play all year, and he ends up having this spectacular season. And, the question is, was he propped up by what was around him? Like, these are the questions people are going to ask. Was he productive because he played for Kevin O'Connell? Was he so good because he was throwing the football to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison? Like, the roster around him was good, no doubt about it. The head coach that he had is good, no doubt about it. Was Sam Darnold just a product of his environment? First, what quarterback isn't surrounded by good players and a good coach? Like, the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow, all of them have good coaches. Tom Brady, best quarterback ever, was also coached by the best head coach ever. Okay, every successful quarterback has a good coach somewhere on their roster. For, Mahomes, it's Andy Reid at head coach. For Joe Burrow, it's Zach Taylor as his head coach. For Josh Allen, Joe Brady's an outstanding offensive coordinator. All of them have good coaches. Lamar Jackson is just playing for John Harbaugh, the longest tenured head coach in the NFL. Okay, so what good quarterback doesn't have a good head coach? Second, every good quarterback has good players around them. Like Travis Kelce being in Kansas City, kind of a big deal for Patrick Mahomes. Okay? He's just, one of the best tight ends ever. Josh Allen has a good running back in James Cook. The Bills went out and got him Amari Cooper. Before that, he had Stephon Diggs. Lamar Jackson has all these weapons around him, like, Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers. Joe Burrow is throwing the football to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and no one sits around and is like, is Joe Burrow just good because he's throwing to arguably the best wide receiver duo in the NFL? No one asks that question because, you watch Joe Burrow, and it's pretty clear that the dude's really talented. Just like Sam Darnold. You watch him play, it's pretty clear that he's talented. Okay, good quarterbacks have good coaches, and they have good players around them. So I don't think it's a knock on Sam Darnold that he played well with good players around him. Okay, the concerning thing for me is the fact that he had 6 straight years of bad football. I think I have the reason why, though, why he was so bad for those 6 years. Okay, once again, in his 6th year, he sat under Kyle Shanahan for a year. And it was reported that, Kyle Shanahan really liked him. Look, if you have Kyle Shanahan's stamp of approval, then you're probably going to get mine. Okay, but, he doesn't want to back up Brock Purdy, so he leaves, goes to Minnesota. He's going to play for Kevin O'Connell, right? And he plays under him for a year. So he's got now back-to-back seasons of playing under 2 of the best offensive-minded coaches in the NFL. And we need to remember that those 3 years that he was in New York playing for the Jets, he played for Adam Gase. Come on now. And then he goes to the Carolina Panthers, where he plays for Matt Rule, who's now coaching Nebraska to 6-6 seasons. Okay? And then he goes to San Francisco. And for the first time in his career, he actually gets to learn something from a guy in Kyle Shanahan who's just shown up and won a whole bunch of games in San Francisco. And then he gets to build off of everything that he learned from Kyle Shanahan when he plays for Kevin O'Connell. Once again, these are 2 of the best offensive coaches in the NFL. And I'm willing to bet that after playing for Adam Gase in New York and playing for Matt Rule in Carolina, I'm sure that he was just refreshed getting to play for smart football people with good players around him, getting to play for a San Francisco 49ers and Minnesota Vikings organization that actually has their stuff together, because the Jets and Panthers do not. And he's going to carry everything that he learned from San Francisco and Minnesota with him into wherever he winds up playing next. Okay, I think the reason why we got this breakout season from him is he was finally with a coaching staff and an organization that was just actually organized and actually knew what they were doing. Now, are the Colts that organization? I don't know. Everyone keeps telling me that this roster's really good. Shane Steichen won a lot of games with Jalen Hurts, and he won games with Justin Herbert. So I think he's a good coach. And I hope that the Colts are uber aggressive in going and getting Sam Darnold, because he is clearly the best option available at quarterback for them this season. Also, Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, you're trying to save your jobs. Like, you need to win 10 games. You need to make the playoffs. And you're probably not doing that with Anthony Richardson, who, even if he comes back better, like, isn't going to be like a top 10 quarterback. If he's like the 14th best quarterback in the NFL, I think you're pretty happy with where he's at. And when you evaluate the potential options at quarterback for the Colts this next season, like, Sam Darnold is clearly better than Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Anthony Richardson. Like, he's clearly the best option. He's 27 years old, younger than Joe Burrow. You know, the stat that you have to say whenever you talk about Sam Darnold. So he's going to be around for, another 8 years or so. Justin Fields, by the way, he's 26. Sam Darnold's only a year older than Justin Fields. Okay, so he's a guy who can, like, play quarterback for you for a while, and he can answer a lot of the Colts' issues. Okay? The real problem is Chris Ballard, and they aren't going to pursue Sam Darnold like this. Okay, Sam Darnold's going to, go to Pittsburgh or something, and we're going to hear Chris Ballard talk about how, it takes two to tango. For some reason, no one ever wants to tango with us. I don't know why. Apparently, this is like the best roster in the NFL. They just don't have a quarterback. I don't know. So we'll hear him talk about how it takes two to tango, or how he wanted too much money and he didn't want to overpay. Then we'll start Anthony Richardson after he beats out Daniel Jones or Jameis Winston. The Colts will go 7-10. And then Jim Irsay might fire Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen in the offseason. I'm still not convinced that he'll do it. I hope he does, because that would be the best thing for the Indianapolis Colts. And the best thing for you is to keep your radio right here, because the Dan Dockett Show is on from noon to 3. You don't want to miss his show. It's going to be fantastic. I'm back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Can't wait. Got a great show in store for you tomorrow. It's going to be great. Dan has a great show in store for you today from noon to 3. 3 great guests all lined up. It's going to be fun, and hopefully you stick around for it. Once again, this has been the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen. I will talk to you tomorrow, and the Dan Dockett Show comes your way here in about 5 minutes.